This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/MALMAG, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. This week I connect to Michigan on Zoom and I talk with Midwest martial art legend David Hatch. David talks to us about how he got involved in martial arts back in the 1960s, how he met his lovely wife Linda through the martial arts, and what it was like making the change from karate to training martial arts with the legendary Dan Inosanto. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. And today I've got a person that I've been waiting to interview for a long time. I've talked to many times and has become someone that I very cherish my time with. And I have, I think, referred to him in the past as, I think, anything JKD, Kali related, and anything kind of like martial arts standard wise goes through this guy. So from the Michigan, and you're in Detroit area, right, David?
Yeah, suburb of Detroit, Canton.
Yeah. Canton. Okay, so this is David Hatch from Michigan, and welcome to the show, David.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've been wanting to have you on here a long time, and it's, kind of one of those I wanted to have a, just kind of check with you first in person. And, fortunately you do come out often enough to LA for me to have made that connection. But, we've talked to a lot of your students actually, which is kind of cool. And, so, I can't say anymore how happy I am, to have you on here, because I think you and Linda are probably two of my more favorite people that I've met through this whole endeavor anyway. And I think you guys have a great story and a great background, and I'd like for people to hear it anyway. So sure. Here you are.
So where do you want me to start? Right from the beginning?
Yeah, I guess we'll just do like every superhero origin story. We'll just start at the beginning. So how did you get involved in martial art? What got you into it, and when, and with who?
Well, actually, we'll go back in time here, about 1965. I was in 8th grade at the time, and I was starting to get in a little fights. People were picking on me, and I'm fighting back, and came across a guy that was a boxer, who knew boxing, and I wasn't winning. He said, "Do you have enough?" I says, "Yeah, I had enough." And he proceeded to teach me a little boxing, but I wasn't that crazy about it. But at the same time, there was a guy that had a book on jiu-jitsu, and he was showing me these finger locks and stuff. And I said, "Oh, I guess you can learn from a book," And wow. I'd never seen anything, on TV or anything until the show came on. It's called I Spy. It was Robert, and Bill Cosby, and show little bits of martial arts in there, and that just got me more enthused about it. And so I thought, I'll get a book, and so I bought this book on karate from Bruce Tegner. It's a little paper. And I started learning from that, which wasn't a whole lot because I didn't really know how to throw the kicks and stuff. I'm just sort of imitating. So it was my dream to want to do this. Then, of course, in the 66, 67 era, you had Black Belt magazine. So I was always reading that and following Chuck Norris, the description of how the tournaments and that. And then Bruce Lee, and then the Green Hornet was coming on. And that really got me going. And I thought, God, I got to be like this. So here I am in high school trying to learn this stuff and watching movies. I think one of the other movies that inspired me too was a James Bond movie called You Only Live Twice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of martial arts in that. made me nuts. And then another movie came out with James Coburn called Our Man Flint.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Boy, this is it, and I was really sparked up. And it wasn't until 68. Well, actually, just I was a senior, 1968. I went to the storefront dojo they had there, and I just walked in there to see what it was like and that. And I didn't have the money for it, but the guy let me watch the class, and it was more of a Korean stylish. And they showed me the one steps and the sparring and stuff. And he asked me, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, it looks pretty good." And so he asked me, "Well, what do you want?" And I didn't want to say, "I want Jeet Kune Do." I didn't want to say that because
right.
I'm going to think. So I said, "Well, I'm looking for something with kicking and punching, and locks and stuff like that, and Aikido, And he says, "Well," he says, "I think the best thing for you to do is just start with one art, get fairly good at that, and then start looking at other arts." And I thought, that's pretty wise, But of course, I couldn't afford that. And so after high school, I worked in a warehouse and met some kids there that were taking up karate. And I'm going, geez, I got to learn this stuff. And I decided, the warehouse is not the way I want to live my life. It was a rough type job. And I thought, I got to go back to school. So my friend said, "Well, why don't you go to junior college?" And I said, well, I didn't have any college prep courses in high school. But he says, "No, you can start from scratch there, And he asked me what my best subject was in high school. And I said, it was mechanical drafting, type engineering type stuff. And he says, "Yeah, you can major in that." And I go, "Oh my God." So I thought, okay, I started prepping for that. And then he comes to me with the school paper. And he says, "Look they have a karate club." I go, oh yeah. So naturally, I get into Henry Ford Community College, got into school and started that karate club. And right from scratch, learning everything. And this was in January of 69. So at that time, my instructor was also building up studios, and he called them Karate and Judo Schools of America. And he started with both karate and judo. I went to see his grand opening, and they had judo demo, but for some reason, judo just wasn't picking up. People wanted the karate, And he had beautiful studio, sauna, locker, and showers, and Zorbalite mat, they call it. It was like the wrestling mat you see now.
Okay.
The foam type, And it was really good. So I got into that. Boom, boom, boom. I got a couple belt ranks. And then by September of 69, I was assisting the guy who was teaching the karate class at the junior college. And lo and behold, there's this beautiful woman with long red hair. And man, was she in shape. I mean, she's really going through the leg raises and sit-ups and everything. I says, man, she's doing better than the guys. But I noticed she was always paying attention to the instructor, never, looked away. And I thought she'd look at me, no.
Yeah.
So then I see she's punching. She's in the front row. We had 3 rows of students. She's punching away. And I thought, oh, she's not holding her fist correctly. So I go up there and I show her how to hold a fist. And I said, make it like this. She goes, oh, she just nods. Okay. And the instructor walks behind the front row. He gives the command, everybody's punching, and then she punches. And I thought, what the hell? And again, I said, keep up with the. She just nods. Yeah, okay. And he gives off the command. She's late again. I thought, what the heck? This counselor flags me over. He's like, come here. He says, that woman's deaf, I go, oh, God, felt like 2 feet tall going back on the mat. But from then she kept coming to ask me questions because she could read my lips real well. And I was really shocked at how well she could read my lips. And so we got along very well. We'd go for lunch. And then after classes, on the side, we'd go and practice some things to help her get up her ranks and stuff. And then she joined the same karate club like I did. And so we kept training with that until we got our black belts. I got mine somewhere around 74 after we were married. And then Linda got hers about 2 years later, I think, 2 or 3 years later. And but we thought, there's got to be something more than this. Now, we were training in our basement with one of my friends named Dean Cruikshank. He's the father of a guy named Darren Cruikshank, who's an MMA guy. And anyway, we're practicing and everything. And he brings this Black Belt Magazine. He comes over and says, "Look at this. Dan Inosanto is going to be here in Michigan." This is 1985, March.
Oh, wow.
And so we said, "Oh man, this is about the closest we're going to get to Cecil Bruce, or Cecil Bruce." And I'm thinking, man, we got to do this because of course Bruce passed away, and you're thinking, well, where's JKD, and but he was also Filipino martial arts, and I thought, well, I didn't know much about that either. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, we got to learn about knives because we don't know anything about knives. So we packed up, all of us went, got a hotel. This was in Lansing, Michigan. It was about an hour drive. And we went in that seminar, and it was Guro Dan, was assisted by Chris Kent, mm-hmm. Larry Hartzell. And I didn't know who Larry Hartzell was, And I bought his book, Enter the Trapping and Grappling, his first book. I had them autograph it. But boy, I tell you, Linda and I are looking there. We were brain dead within the first couple hours. It was double stick, single stick, single dagger, Oh God, it was so much. And he put in a little bit of Silat stuff at the time because he was learning it, and then showed what the Muay Thai was about. And then Larry Hartzell started doing all this trapping and locking, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we were going nuts. And in those days, the seminars were 8 hours long a day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and 2 days of this, we're pulling our hair out trying to figure all this out. There was a guy, Dan Timlin, and his wife, Tammy. They're the ones that brought Guro Dan out. And they were for a while. So they had separate seminars also. So we'd come to his school in Lansing and practice with him to learn some of this stuff because we were like, I mean, we got video of us when we were first trying to do, stick, high, low, high type motions and trying to do the trapping. I thought, oh my God, it was terrible. But it was an experience and we just loved it, so we just kept doing it. And then finally I asked Guro if it could be part of his instructor program, and sure. But during that time also, Guro was introducing us to Ajahn Chai. And we had a summer camp in Michigan for 2 years, one in 87 and one in 88. In 87, it was Guro Dan, Salem Osley. So we learned the Savat there.
Wow.
Larry Hartzell, and this guy named Nino Bernardo, who was doing the Wing Chun. Mm-hmm. So we're learning all that. And then we had it again in 88. And in 88, that's when Linda and I tested for Savat with Salem. And we had an additional instructor, and that was Pendekar Paul de Tours. And he was assisted by Bert Richardson. And that's the first time we met Bert. And well, that was great. I mean, Pendekar Paul de Tours really loved Linda. He's trying to help her and everything. But it was a fantastic seminar. We learned so much. And so we just kept doing it over and over again. It was how rough at first, because when we go to seminars, Guro Dan would show a lot, but he would show like 8 things, and you're like, oh, what was number 1? Yeah. And then he'd also show what not to do. So Linda's looking at this, and so we get together in our 3 minutes time, and we're supposed to practice this stuff, and Linda's doing the stuff we're not supposed to do. I had to correct it and everything. Of course, we ran out of time. So It was so for a while, for about a year, I went to seminars by myself to help learn it and then bring it home. And we worked at it. And then she started coming again to seminars. But we just kept coming. We were lucky because a guy named Keith Witowski in Waterloo, Indiana, he would bring Guro out. So that was, and Larry too. So we'd be out there, for those seminars, because closer by. But we started going to Chicago, and then, with Ajahn Chai, and Linda first didn't want to test with Ajahn Chai. She says, he looked too mean. But after we got to know him, he was really nice, And
yeah,
we'd bring him out for seminars, and we tested. We got all the way up to Ajahn level for Muay Thai.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And then we also did Lameko Eskrima with Edgar Saliti.
Wow.
And that was interesting. You know, he was doing same moves that we did with Guro Dan, but he had different names because he was going by Tagalog language.
Right. Right.
And my student Chris was helping us with this, you know, and trying to learn all this stuff. And so it's like, wow, this is great, you know. And so here we are learning all this stuff from all these different people. And then again, Eric Paulson started coming into the picture. So we met him, and he remembers us from 1987.
Wow.
I thought, geez, this is interesting. And so we started working with him, and of course, still with Super Larry Hartzell. And then Guro Dan, we picked him up from the airport. I think it was 1994 to a seminar here in Michigan. And Guro says to me, David, I want you to look up Ted Buett. I go, who? He says, no, Ted, he'll enhance your stick work. You know, really good for you. And I said, oh, wow. And he said, he does Balint walk. I said, Balint what? I didn't know what the hell. So he says, I said, well, you have a telephone number? He says, no. I said, you have an address? He says, no. He's in the Detroit area. You'll find him. Oh, God. Oh, God. It took me months trying to find him, looking through these phone books in Detroit, of course. And he was in a suburb of Southfield, which is about a half-hour drive from us. But still, I couldn't find him. And my student, Chris, was taking a Japanese class in college. And so he told me about this guy taking a Screama in his class. I said, well, find out what kind of Screama he's doing. He did. And he says, that's what you've been looking for. It's the Balintawak, and he's got Ted Buett as an instructor. I said, oh, my God, tell him I'm looking for Ted. So that guy was Steve. His name was Steve. Steve called me and says, okay, here's what you got to do. You got to call Ted Buett, and you got to make an appointment with him, one-on-one interview. And he told me how much it's going to cost and all that. So Linda and I went over his house. This was like December of 94. And we sat there and talked, and we got along real well because Manang Ted was still working as an engineer. So I had engineering background. And so we're talking away, and I was still working. And we're talking for about 2.5 hours. And then finally, Linda just comes out and says, when are you two going to start training? And we both look at each other. Okay, next week. So we did and started training. And boy, was that so different from what Guro Dan was teaching. But I loved it because it was like Wing Chun, you know, hardcore, a lot of hand trapping, and a lot of hand manipulation and monitoring somebody's stick and maneuvering somebody while you're hitting them. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So it was like, wow, you know, this is unbelievable. You know, it took, and it was interesting because I was having a little hard time with it, but when he put the pressure on, I'd back off, and I'm doing Illustrissimo and La Costa, you know. Yeah. He says, Dave, you know, that's a good response, but let me tell you, we're not trying to slice the tree down. We're trying to chop the tree down. And I thought, oh, now I get a better picture now of what it was like. So I just continued with that, you know, and until he had a stroke. It was December of 2005.
Oh, okay.
So I had about 11 years training with him. And he had that stroke for about a good, 7 years. 7 years he had that stroke. And I'd visit him, you know, once or twice, every other week I'd come see him. And I'd go over videos, and I was going over what I was videotaping to put out, you know, in DVDs. Because I was always asking him, you know, we got to do a DVD. We got to do something. You know? And he didn't want to do it. And finally he says, okay, Dave, you do it. So I started doing it, and we'd review it, you know, and he approved them all. Says, that's good. That's good. And even his wife was involved. She knew history like you wouldn't believe. And I'm thinking, God, I got to get her together with Guro Dan. Because she'd talk about the Mafalindo, you know, and everything, and Abbreviated Empire and all this. And I'm going, wow. She was a wealth of knowledge. But actually, they both passed on. It was around 2013. Same year. His wife died first of, what's a cancer? It's a cancer. I forget the name of it now. But anyway, she died February, then he died in July, right after. So obviously, you know, they were so well together, you know, that they couldn't stand being without each other.
Yeah.
But it was
a bit. I've
Good.
seen that happen a bit with couples. It's like one of them goes, the other one usually within a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Pancreatic cancer. That's what it was she had.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
tough.
It go fast. But yeah, so we just continue enjoying what we're doing. And I always thank Guro Dan for having me search for him. I mean, look at
Yeah,
Guro. How many instructors that say, okay, I want you to go train with this guy. I want you to go train with that guy. And,
right.
not worried about losing a student because he knows you're dedicated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, and he does that with, geez, not only this, but it's just like it's almost like he kind of understands a custom tailoring to you and says, okay, you should check this guy and this guy and this guy out, or
Yeah.
girl, for that matter. And it seems like he's sort of in tune to, what's brilliant about him is it seems like he understands where you and the other person are actually going to help each other out.
Right.
It sounds like to me, you became a very important part of Ted Buick's life too. There, propagation of his art, and it seems like Guro Dan's just smart enough to see where two people are going to work well together.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really pretty.
Guro knew he was an engineer, and I was an engineer. Yeah. Obviously, there you go. You match that. Very good.
That's really cool, man. Yeah. So it's quite a resume there, David. And what I like is the time frame and what I mean, it's all fascinating to me, and I think where I get really interested in a lot of things is sort of the evolution of things. Where I started martial arts in the early 1980s, but you started in the 1960s, and then too, with your wife Linda actually being involved in that time period. That was rare for women to be involved in martial art at that time, was it not?
That's correct. You didn't see that many women. No.
Right. Yeah, I know. For like where I studied, there was several arts under one roof, which was kind of unusual for that time. And it was basically, and I think that had to do with my instructor being a person who was very personable. And he was also open-minded, like, okay, he also was not worried that if he operated a karate school and there was a taekwondo guy in there, that it was going to cost him business, or if there was a kung fu guy in there. And so we had kung fu, taekwondo, shorinji kempo, and karate. And then, so it was interesting to meet all these people. But between all of those, I think there was, let's see, my instructor's wife, the taekwondo guy's wife, the instructor's stepdaughter, and then the taekwondo guy had a daughter. There was a girl in the kung fu class, and maybe one or two other in our karate class. So that's not even 10. Like out of probably 60, 80 people in the building, at times or even more, 6 or 7 females. So that's not many in that time period. And now, I look at, say, our kids class, and it's 50% girls, at least. So that's really pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it was tough, because Linda had to spar with a lot of the guys.
Yeah.
It was tougher. So they had to sort of ease up a little bit. Our black belt test was really tough.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/MALMAG and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with David Hatch. Coming up next week is episode number 75, and we have a real treat for you, Eric Paulson. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available, with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the events calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jack Al Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.